Welcome everybody, the new people that have joined. We're just giving it, I think we're about to kick off any minute now. 3 minutes past.
We can get going, can't we? And we can let people in.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
So hello and good afternoon everybody. My name's Jackie Hodson and I'm joined today with Zoe, my business partner. We'll be your host for the next hour. Today we'll talk to you about the importance of gut health and we'll introduce you to your microbiome. We'll touch on how stress can affect your health and some things you can do to alleviate it. So just going to give you a little bit of background about myself before I introduce you to Zoe. So I've got a 27-year background in education, first as a maths teacher and then more recently as a maths consultant and a Department for Education designated specialist leader of education for maths. I've consulted to many academy trusts across the UK, as well as spending a whole year consulting to the states of Guernsey and delivering school improvement and training to teachers on the island of Guernsey and Alderney. So you may wonder how this has led me into working in gut health. So to cut a long story short, whilst I was still working in the classroom, I had got to a state of burnout, which we'll touch on a little bit later on in the talk. I began working with a health coach myself who helped me to address my own gut health. And then as I'd already trained to become a bone therapist many years before, and I'd been doing this part-time, I added gut health to my own practice and the rest is history, as we say. So I'm now going to hand you over to Zoe, who's going to start the first part of the talk.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Yes, hello everybody and welcome. So just a little bit on me as well. So I'm Zoe Reast, co-founder with Jackie of Gut Health Solutions. And I have a real passion and keen interest in the science of the microbiome, which I find fascinating. And I'm now lucky enough to be in a position to share this information with others. I'm actually from a corporate background, 20 plus years in project management, mostly for financial organisations, but I'm also a qualified human bone therapist and an equine iridologist. Over the last few years, I've coached many clients through our Gut Reset programme and count myself very lucky to be able to be part of helping people to change their lives and in many cases dramatically improve their health through resetting their microbiome. So thank you so much everybody for joining us today, and we're really excited to be able to share this information with you and appreciate you taking the time to listen. So just as a starting point, so in this talk, we've used our best efforts to obtain the most accurate and reliable information available regarding the microbiome. However, this talk is simply to provide awareness and it isn't a substitute for medical advice. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to touch on absenteeism in the workplace, what the gut microbiome is and what affects the gut microbiome and how it contributes to physical and emotional well-being and simple steps that you can take to improve your gut microbiome for better health. Okay, so let's dive straight in. So before we start, hands up any of you or anybody that you know has had any of these symptoms that are shown on the screen. So give me a wave if you know of anybody. Yeah, okay, I can see a couple of hands gone up there. Well, these symptoms and conditions, along with many more, can all be linked back to your gut health. So here are some of the top reasons for absence in the workplace. There's also a high proportion of people that are suffering from presenteeism as well, which is where people come into the office, they're not actually absent from the workplace, but they're not feeling good. You know, they're feeling ill, they can't concentrate, you know, they might have some kind of health issue, but they're actually in work. So there's a huge amount of people that come in this category. So before, as we move on, did you know that in the UK, gut-related health issues cost businesses £3 billion a year? And musculoskeletal injuries affect 1 in 4 of the adult population, which is around 9.6 million adults and 12,000 children. So stress continues to be one of the main causes of short and long-term absence, with depression and anxiety on the increase since the pandemic, with many people extremely concerned about how this is affecting their mental health. Although there are many different reasons and causes, it's never any one thing in isolation. Gut health certainly plays a fundamental part. So the focus needs to shift from trying to manage these health issues once they've occurred to what preventative measures can we put in place now to lessen the probability of these developing in the future. So we'll briefly touch on some of these areas and how they relate to gut health as we progress through the talk. So, more than 2,000 years ago, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, suggested that all disease begins in the gut. Hippocrates was incorrect in suggesting that all disease begins in your gut. Evidence shows that many chronic metabolic diseases, in fact, do. So you've probably all heard the phrase, you are what you eat, but actually that's not quite right. We have come across many clients, myself included, who have had a pretty good diet, eating lots of fruit and vegetables and highly nutritious foods, but still feeling like something isn't quite right. We often make a concerted effort to eat better diet and cut out the nasties, but we still do not feel like it's making any difference. So instead of you are what you eat, it should be you are what you absorb. We can compare it to reading a book. If we absorb nothing from the book, then it has added nothing to our collective wisdom. But if we read about things that we are interested in, then we absorb the knowledge, and that affects us. Just like food provides nutrition that we absorb, which affects our systems, both positively and negatively, depending on what we eat and absorb. So let's talk about the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome is an ecosystem of complex community of bacteria, fungi, viruses, yeasts, parasites, and microbes that live in us and on us. And this makes up 90 trillion cells. So 90% of you is actually made up of the microbiome, and only 10% is human DNA cells. So several thousand different species are in the gut, meaning that these are actually accessible and they can be modified and changed. So if you just take a look at the tip of your index finger and take a guess how many bacteria and microbes are on just one fingertip. Well, there's more bacteria on that small area than there are people in the UK, over 60 million. Isn't that amazing? So if you added up all the microbes, they actually add up to 4 kilograms, which is the weight of an adult's brain. And the right balance is critical to our health. And no doubt you've probably heard of good and bad bacteria. So a good way to look at the role of your gut microbiome is to think of a tree. When the roots, your gut microbiome in this case, are not nourished correctly, then the tree as a whole cannot function its best. But if you provide the right nourishment, then the roots begin to function to their optimal capacity, and the tree looks and functions at its best, just like you and your gut microbiome. So having the right balance is critical for optimal health, as our microbiome affects many aspects of our lives. So for example, let's take a look at mood. Are you aware that 90% of serotonin, aka the happy hormone, is manufactured in your gut? We will touch on stress and burnout later, but suffice to say that if we are stressed and even in a state of fear, like many of us have been recently, it makes our body more acidic. Then that in turn contributes to our gut being out of balance, and then we produce very little of the GABA hormone, which makes us more stressed. So then that makes us more acidic, and that makes us produce less GABA. Are you getting the picture? So we will touch on hormones shortly, as they are all produced in the gut when it is in the right balance. So add that to food cravings, weight management, digestion, metabolism, brain health, fertility, and many other things. You can see how important having a balanced gut microbiome is. I'm going to touch on these in a little bit more detail now. So let's start with immunity. This one's really interesting. So did you know that 70% of your immune system is located in your gut? And gut bacteria plays a role in the training of your immune system. They let us know what is safe and what is not. If you have an immune system that's not acting your best, it's important to address the gut microbiome to lessen the risk of autoimmune conditions and lots of other diseases. So one of the minor illnesses from the list of absenteeism we showed you at the beginning was digestive issues. So as you can see, there are many types of digestive issues ranging from bloated and having acid reflux through to more serious conditions such as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. All of these can be attributed to your microbiome in some way and the type of bacteria housed in the gut. So irritable bowel syndrome is the most common gastrointestinal disorder with a worldwide prevalence ranging generally in the area of 10 to 15% of the population, and it's the third biggest cause of absenteeism at work. Stress can also be a prominent factor in developing and worsening IBS symptoms. So did you know that constipation alone costs the NHS £150 million each year, which could be easily resolved through including more high fibre foods in your diet and drinking more water? So recent research has found there to be some success in inducing remission in ulcerative colitis patients through the use of fecal microbiota transplants. In simple terms, this is a process of taking feces from a healthy donor, extracting beneficial intestinal bacteria and yeasts from it, and then transplanting it into the colon of the recipient. It's also sometimes referred to as a stool transplant. There are, however, much less drastic ways of affecting your microbiome. So as mentioned earlier, stress and anxiety are the main cause for workplace absence. Stress can lead to changes in both the numbers and types of diversity in the gut bacteria, which can have a knock-on effect for mood via the gut-brain communication system. So as a very rough guide, the calmer and more balanced things are in the gut, i.e. good intestinal barrier integrity, good diversity of bugs, lower inflammation, etc., the more positive mental health outcomes tend to be. So as mentioned previously, gut bacteria produce and regulate important substances for mental health and in particular hormones, such as serotonin, dopamine, and melatonin. So let's have a little look at some hormones. So it's amazing that so many hormones are produced in our gut. So let's look at them in a bit more detail. So first we have GABA, the calmness hormone that helps us to be more resilient to stress. Melatonin is the sleep hormone, and that regulates our good sleep. Dopamine and noradrenaline are the hormones responsible for us jumping out of bed in the morning and not reaching for the snooze button. They help to keep us motivated and more alert. And it doesn't stop there. There are other hormones being made in the gut. So oxytocin, it heightens self-esteem and helps to heal emotional trauma. You might be surprised to hear that over 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. The happier our gut, the happier we are. In fact, we have seen countless clients come off antidepressants after resetting their gut. Then we have the fertility and menopause, both being linked to the microbiome, along with endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome. So when people do a kickstart, where they address their microbiome and their hormones, and their hormones are in a better state of balance, we see people calmer, happier, sleeping better, and reduced menopausal symptoms. So, the gut-brain connection. So follow your gut instinct. Have you ever had a gut-wrenching experience? Do certain situations make you feel nauseous? Have you ever felt butterflies in your stomach? We use the expressions for a reason. The gastrointestinal tract is sensitive to emotion, anger, anxiety, sadness, and elation. All of these feelings and other can trigger symptoms in the gut. So this relationship between the gut and the brain is called the gut-brain axis and the communication between them, with the microbiome being the key regulator of these signals. The gut is also known as the second brain and even shares the same tissue. They even resemble each other. So how does the gut talk to the brain? Well, this is via the vagus nerve that sends signals from our brain to all of our organs and also collects information from all of our organs and sends it back to the brain. The gut is innervated by this nerve. So when the body is under stress, it activates the fight or flight response, which is the body's natural survival reaction. And when this happens, the digestion slows down and the body will use its energy on the threat. And this in turn increases gut sensitivity. So then we just move on to poor concentration and brain fog. So what do we mean when we're talking about brain fog? So the definition is a usually temporary stage of diminished mental capacity marked by an inability to concentrate or to think or reason clearly. and the inability to have a sharp memory or focus. So brain fog can affect our productivity, performance, and therefore our ability to reach our objectives at work and at home. So how does this relate to your gut microbiome? Well, there's a number of factors: the balance of your gut bacteria, how effectively your body is producing hormones, and there have also been many links connecting leaky gut to brain fog. Some other causes can be also food sensitivities, diet, allergies, toxins, and more. So now I have finished my first part, so I can take a sip of water, which is good, and I can hand over to Jackie to talk us through the second part.
Thank you, Zoe. So let's look at what affects our microbiome. So we'll touch on some of these in a little bit more detail as we go along. So as you can see, there's quite a few different aspects that can affect your microbiome. I'm just going to briefly touch on birth. I was quite surprised to hear that birth actually gives you your first dose of microbiome. So when you're born naturally, as the baby's coming down the birth canal, they get the first gulp of the mother's microbiome. And for those babies who were actually born through C-section, because they miss out on that, some hospitals are now asking parents if they'd like to have vaginal seeding. So I've just actually had a client who's gone through that herself. And so when you ask for vaginal seeding, what they do is they put a swab up the mother's birth canal and rub it all over the baby straight after birth, so they're still getting their the dose of microbiome. So a good way to look at it is to think of health as a continuum, with the poorest health at one end and optimal health at the other. We're all traveling along this path, and the choices we make and the environment we live in affect the direction of travel. Each individual action we take may not in itself push us very far, but the continued choices repeated over time determine the overall speed and direction. So let's look at some of the main causes to microbiome imbalance. So of course, diet is a major factor. Remember, we are what we absorb, but it's not as simple as just saying don't eat this and don't eat that. Over the last 50 years, we have as consumers demanded our foods to be provided to us in easier, longer lasting and more colourful ways. And this has had an impact on the nutrition of the food we consume today. So that burger there, for example, was made to look healthy, but is it? Our desire to keep food shelf stable for longer, to look more appetizing and to have low fat or low sugar alternatives has meant that we have moved from food, which was pretty much a plant or an animal, to something that resembles neither. So you can see all those things as we're going through those shelves that are just in packets and jars and don't look anything like a plant or an animal. We've sacrificed good quality nutrition for ease and convenience. We can blame the manufacturers to an extent, but ultimately they're delivering what we are demanding. So another trait of our European-centric diet is that we have, by and large, a diet that is low in fermented foods. These are an excellent source of nutrition to help rebalance your gut microbiome. So examples here are sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, kefir. Another result of our desire to experience food that is more attractive, available all year round and more hardy is the extra pressure that this puts on farming methods. In order to meet the demands, farmers pick crops earlier and earlier and use other methods like tree spraying to keep the fruit and vegetables looking healthier for longer. The end result of these changes in farming is that our soil, which has its own microbiome, has seen a huge drop in the nutrients that it can provide to the food that is grown in it. So a landmark study, sorry Zoe, can you mute people please? Thank you. So a landmark study back in 2014 at the University of Texas established that in a 50-year time span, 6 out of 13 nutrients in a general selection of produce had measurable declines of important nutrients. The losses ranged from 6 to 38% and included protein, calcium, phosphorus, iron, vitamin B2 and vitamin B6. Sorry, BC, vitamin C even. An illustration of this is that for every orange a person ate 50 years ago, you need to get 8 of the same oranges for the same nutritional value. As this study was done as far back as 2004, we might even need more than 8 today. So it's true, the fruits and vegetables most of us eat today are less nutritious than the ones our grandparents ate. So another area that affects our health is the environment around us. So with the current lockdown and restrictions on global travel, it is actually getting better at the moment, but it's only a matter of time before we see this again. Whilst there is aspects of environmental pollution that we can affect through education and changing mindsets, I want to touch on persistent organic pollutants, or POPs as they are called. POPs can play a specific negative impact on human health and the environment. We are exposed to POPs in a variety of ways, mainly through the food we eat, but also through the air we breathe and in many products on our daily lives. These all have added POPs to improve product characteristics. Examples are surfactants like detergents, emulsifiers, firming agents, and dispersants. And as a result, POPs can be found virtually everywhere on our planet in measurable concentrations, and that means that they are found in us as well. Our body has its own mechanisms for dealing with these toxins, which we will discover later. As a society, we also rely heavily on medication, and whilst antibiotics are essential when we really need them, our overuse of them, as well as many other daily pharmaceutical medications, are causing problems for our gut. Antibiotics are named well. They are literally inhibiting and in some cases destroying our microorganisms, but they don't just destroy the good bacteria, they wipe out good and bad alike. It's estimated that after a 2-week course of antibiotics, your microbiome can take up to 6 months to rebalance if you don't help it with prebiotic supplementation. So which one of these images resonates with you? So our lifestyle has a major part to play. This is the kind of positive imagery. So the top one is the kind of positive imagery we see a lot today of entrepreneurs and office people working in completely fulfilling jobs, enjoying their work. But all too often, the reality is very different. And that's a bit like I felt when I got to that burnout stage. We're very different with stress, a lack of exercise, and unhealthy snacking leading to many health problems, both mentally and physically. So let's just have a look at burnout. So the definition of burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet constant demands. So how do we spot burnout? So in other people that we work with and in ourselves as well. Sometimes we don't even realise we're going down that route. So people might distance themselves and have physical symptoms like headaches and stomach aches or intestinal issues. So studies have shown that many people who have chronic fatigue also have IBS. They might have emotional exhaustion. Burnout causes people to feel drained, unable to cope, and they feel tired. They often lack the energy to get their work done. There might be reduced performance, which can affect everyday tasks, not just at work, but at home as well. And people can have difficulty concentrating and often lack creativity. So how does this all link to our microbiome? Scientists have discovered and identified abnormal levels of specific gut bacteria in individuals with chronic fatigue syndrome. Researchers showed that the bacteria in the guts of 50 people with fatigue were different from those of the people without fatigue, which is really, really interesting. Studies showed certain bacteria have an impact on the metabolism. They affect the ability to assimilate nutrients, the energy balance, and cause inflammation, which can make you feel ill. If you're feeling the early signs of burnout, and if they're there and you're just recognising them, look at the foods that you're eating and try to make some healthy changes. This will help immensely in assisting the body to recover. Another very important aspect that will help you manage burnout is meditation. When you become fatigued and have that feeling of being overwhelmed, it's amazing what some quiet time aside to focus on your breathing and positive affirmations can do. So all the things here are things that have been shown to be affected by the microbiome. This list is not exhaustive, by the way. These are some of the issues that we've seen with clients in our clinics and how it's affected them. So as if we don't have enough toxins going into our bodies as it is, the bad or the negative bacteria begin to produce their own toxins called endotoxins. So this is adding to it as well. And then these endotoxins then travel to various parts of your body, causing inflammation and ultimately metabolic dysfunction in one or more of our core systems. This is like our internal warming system. You can see the body there warming up and starting to inflame. So our gut microbiome is made up of symbionts and pathobionts, the good guys and the bad guys. It's important to have the right balance between the two, and we do actually need both, but in the right quantities. So optimally, we should have about 85% of the good guys and about 15% of the bad guys. So if we do have the wrong ratio, then we experience gut dysbiosis, or as we know it, just an imbalance in the gut. Dysbiosis then leads to leaky gut. So for some people, the lining of the gut wall can become damaged. This lining, called the intestinal mucosal barrier, consists of a single layer of cells. So the tight junctions between these cells, which you can see there on the left-hand side, they're called tight junctions, are usually kept very tight and they stop things from seeping out of the gut. However, when the bad bacteria attacks this gut lining, it can cause what doctors call intestinal permeability, and it's what we know as leaky gut syndrome. People suffering from this syndrome can experience a range of conditions due to the bacteria, toxins, and even undigested food particles passing through these leaky junctions and into the bloodstream. This then causes the body to react by trying to defend itself, causing systemic inflammation, and this is the body's normal defense mechanism towards what it thinks is an attack. So believe it or not, sometimes pain and stiffness in the joints is caused by an overly acidic body. An acidic diet makes you more prone to inflammation, which is what causes your body pain. So remember, everything we eat goes through the gut, and it's known that inflammation starts in the gut. But most foods can be divided into acidic or alkalizing groups. Many fresh fruits and veggies tend to be more alkalizing, where some foods like meat, coffee, alcohol, soft drinks, cocoa, and processed foods like white flour and foods containing sugar tend to be more acidic. So try reducing some of the more acidic foods in your diet and see what happens to your pain and stiffness. You might see a nice change in those. Your stomach actually is acidic, but blood and tissue are alkaline. So when there's too much acidity in the body, it starts to take the alkaline from the tissues. And then when they become acidic, which is why we can get muscle aches. So to help acidity, drink lots of water, remove acidic foods, eat more greens, pay attention to your emotional state, get good sleep and exercise, and consider good nutraceutical type supplementation. So just in case you've not been paying attention for the last 20 minutes or so, here's a 2-minute summary about why the microbiome is so important for our health.
Evidence is mounting that the gut, which contains 70 to 80% of our immune tissue, could have an even greater impact on our overall health than once thought.
They say all health leads to and comes from the gut, don't they? And this is a massive deal.
So your gut is surprisingly clever because you have what's called the second brain down there.
The bacteria that live in your gut, your microbiomes, known as trillions of them living in your gut, but have effects in all sorts of different systems in your body.
The microbiota is at the centre of so many different things. I think of it as sort of as a bicycle wheel, where the microbiota is the hub, and at the end of all the spokes is everything from irritable bowel syndrome to inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's disease, right through even to perhaps the way that we behave.
Our guts, or rather what we put in them, get a lot of attention these days. Clean living celebrities and diet trends claiming what we eat influences our overall well-being, even our mental health.
Because we know that the microbes in your gut also help control your weight. They control your cravings. They send messages to your brain. The brain in your gut talks to the brain in your head and vice versa. It sends messages.
That's interesting.
So when you talk about, you know, having thinking with your gut, going with your gut, that is literally true. Your gut is talking to your brain and telling it stuff.
The brain-gut axis. We've been used to thinking about it as doctors as something where the brain controls the gut. And now there's emerging evidence that possibly the microbiota, the bacteria living in our gut, may well be influencing the brain. So it goes the other way too. And that's fascinating, I think, and that's new.
Gut health is all the rage these days, and that's because over the last 5 or 10 years we've started to realise that the health of our gut doesn't only affect our digestion, things like bloating and how we feel in our tummies, it affects our overall health and well-being as well.
Perhaps the most important thing here for me as a practicing doctor is the use of antibiotics. That if people realise what they were doing to their forgotten organ by taking antibiotics when they often don't need them, they would think twice.
We know that the microbes in your gut also teach your immune system how to behave.
Okay.
Which is a really weird thought. It's like your granny teaching the kids how to behave.
So that's amazing, isn't it? But don't just take it from me. You can do a lot of research yourself. So I did a quick internet search this morning and I just typed into a search engine, and all you need to do is just think of a condition. So a condition and add on microbiome or gut health. And these are just a few of the things that I found this morning. So here we've got gut health linked to menopause and weight gain, to endometriosis, gut health linked to polycystic ovary syndrome and fertility and autoimmunity. Even it can be a cause of bowel cancer. Anxiety can be helped by addressing it, and depression as well. Here we've got stress, depression and diet. Even type 2 diabetes can be affected by your microbiome. Heart health, MS, multiple sclerosis, and even dementia. So they're just a few of the different conditions that I just typed in. And obviously you guys can do that yourself. And I do encourage you to have a look and research yourself, and you'll find a lot of information out there on the internet. So for example, when we've worked with people with their gut health and we've helped them to address the gut microbiome and their gut bacteria is in a better state of balance, these improvements can happen. So we've seen people get rid of food cravings, improve digestion, better sleep, reduced aches and pains, they're feeling less stressed, younger and happier, feeling younger and happier, enhanced sports performance, balanced hormones, boosted immunity, improved mood, and so on. So we've got a lot of things there, you know, more energy, better recognition, obviously getting rid of the brain fog and things like that. So these are things that we are noticing with our clients as they go through and do a gut reset. So let's have a think about how we can help ourselves. So the first thing is to think of your gut as a garden. So you can think of the weeds being the bad bacteria. You can think of the seeds as being the good bacteria. The plant food is the prebiotics, and the manure or fertilizer is the food we eat or the nutrition. So now I've had people attend one of these talks and tell me I'm going to start eating more sauerkraut or taking some probiotics. Now doing that in isolation might help a little bit, but that's very much like parting the weeds, planting a few seeds and just hoping for the best, hoping that they're going to grow. Obviously they're not going to grow brilliantly when they're surrounded by the weeds. I've had people say, Jackie, I've listened to your talk and I'm going to start eating better. Well, you imagine you've got a patch full of weeds and you throw loads of fertilizer manure on it. What's going to happen? It's just going to fuel the bad bacteria as well as the good bacteria. I've had people say that they're going to do a detox. Now, we've all done detoxes in the past. Well, I know that I've done detoxes in the past. Feel absolutely amazing while I've done the detox. But then if you're not addressing those holes in the gut lining, if you're not starting the repair of the tight junctions in the gut, then as soon as you start eating again, it's only a matter of time before you start feeling rubbish. So what we can do is we can think of addressing our gut with a four-pronged approach. So the first one is pulling the weeds by removing toxins. So unhealthy gut bacteria require refined foods such as sugar, junk food, rice, pasta, and things like that to flourish. So remove these foods and think about detoxing. Our guts need fertilizer called prebiotics, which contain unique non-digestible plant fibers such as inulin, garlic, beans, onion, chicory root, asparagus, or any green leafy vegetables. So these are the it's like the plant food, those that's feeding the probiotics, the good seeds that you're putting in. The third stage is thinking about your probiotics. These are cultured or fermented foods that colonize our guts with good bacteria. So we've got natural yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, pickles, and some cheeses. And then the fourth stage is about enriching your gut garden with nutrients, and this is where it's going to help you to reduce inflammation. So let's just have a quick look now at why we might detox. So has anybody ever yo-yo dieted or been unable to maintain a healthy weight? So I'm thinking of those people who lose lots of weight and then pile it straight back on again. So I'm just thinking of a friend of mine who'd spent 18 months going to a health club, and she lost about 5 stone, and within 2 months of her stopping dieting, she piled it all back on, and the rest and more on top of it as well, which is really, really demoralizing and very upsetting for the person who's in that situation. I myself have yo-yo dieted as well. So let's have a look at why that's the case. So we mentioned previously about the body having its own mechanisms for protecting itself from toxins. So let me explain how it works. So the body understands the dangers that these toxins present to it. So it calls in the troops, which are known as fat cells. Fat cells can surround the toxins, providing a shield between them and the body, doing their job to protect ourselves. But unfortunately, if we diet without first removing the toxins, then the fat in the cells shrinks as we lose weight, and the toxins are then free to roam around the body again and to create mischief. So this is one reason why sometimes we feel unwell if we lose weight quickly. we have no protection against the toxins. So of course, our body is clever and it knows what to do. The moment that you stop dieting, you create more fat cells to collect the toxins. You can suffer from yo-yo dieting. And if we don't remove the toxins first, and yo-yo dieting has been proven to put our body under a lot of stress, which leaves us deflated and unwell. So if we make sure that we perform a cellular detox first, or at the same time as dieting, then when the fat in the cells is removed as part of a normal weight loss program, there's very few toxins remaining that we need to be protected from. The body then doesn't need to create new fat, and it leads to more energy and more healthy muscle being built. So the secret here is to perform a cellular level detox at the same time or before embarking on a weight loss program. And I'm going to hand you back over to Zoe now. We're just going to go through a few more steps and finish off the talk. You're muted, Zoe.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Jackie. Right, just on to some simple steps to improving your gut health. So what you can do every day to start helping your gut microbiome. So eating gut-friendly foods. So try to eat the rainbow, which means eating fruits and vegetables of different colours every day. So try to avoid starches, sugars, processed foods, tea, coffee, alcohol, carbohydrates, and anything processed. So try and eat whole, natural foods. Pre and probiotics can help to populate the good bacteria, especially after antibiotics. And the prebiotics are also essential in this combination because they contain the fermentable fibres that feed the probiotics. So we've mentioned stress and how detrimental it can be to your gut microbes. So try some meditation or mindfulness on a regular basis to help quieten the mind. Supplementation. So consider a good quality supplement to support your body and top up on those nutrients that we aren't able to get through our food sources anymore. Go outside, get closer to nature. There's a microbiome everywhere. So it's in the air, in the soil, in the leaves, in the trees. The whole of our environment has a microbiome. So go out there, even take your shoes off so you're actually getting these microbes on you, and walk in bare feet, and hug a tree if you like. You could even do that to get some of these microbes into your body. Gut bacteria diversity. So for eating lots of different foods, so getting the diversity of gut bacteria through eating lots of different foods and also being in the nature around us will help this diversity. And this is what we really need for an optimal microbiome. So reducing toxins, obviously we've just spoken about these, and you know, they're in the air we breathe, they're in what we put on our skin every day, they're in our foods, you know, they're all around us. So eat organic where possible, and with products that you're buying for your skin or for your washing, try to make them from as natural substances as possible, because this is all going into our bodies and ultimately affecting our gut microbiome. So sleep, obviously try to get good sleep, whatever that means for you, and however you can do that, because the body obviously repairs overnight, so sleep is really important. And again, only take medication when you really need to, including obviously antibiotics when you really need to. And if you do take a course of antibiotics, then perhaps look at some probiotics to repopulate that gut bacteria afterwards. Consider stool testing, as I mentioned earlier on. That's going into a little bit more detail about what you can see from the microbiome, so you can get reports which show you the specific types of gut bacteria that you house and which ones you might need more of to help with your overall health. So there's quite a lot of services you can get in that area, or also completing a gut microbiome reset program. So if you prefer to have a structured and intensive way of resetting your gut, so I've given you lots of options there on things that you can do to help with your gut microbiome every day. But if you prefer a structured and intensive way of resetting your gut, then we offer a 21-day gut reset program, which consists of good gut-friendly food, supplementation and exercise, which is fully supported through our mentoring program. And we have an online platform and daily trackers and meal ideas and recipe planners, so to really support you with your journey. And what we really hope from that also is that you will start to incorporate some of these changes into your lifestyle going forward. So you'll think more about what you pick up in the supermarkets, what you're eating, and you'll get into a new routine and avoid those bad habits and try and leave those behind. So if you want to know more about our program, obviously do contact us. So we have come to the end of our talk, and actually we are within time, so that's good. So we really hope that you've enjoyed today's talk. And if you would like to join us to help awareness of the gut microbiome, then we do offer partnership programs with wellness companies and directly with corporate organisations. And we can also deliver this talk and others to your workforce. And also we offer a corporate discount scheme for our 21-day programme. So we have actually got a bit of time now, Jackie. We weren't sure if we want to take any questions. So feel free to drop off. The presentation has actually finished now. We thank you very much for joining us. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to hang on, ask us some questions or type it in the chat box there. So we'll hang around for a little while longer.
Thanks
very much, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you so much. And I'll stop recording now in case anybody has got any sort of personal questions they want to ask.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jackie.